Gangu thought he had the perfect family, until one day, he saw his wife walking arm in arm with another man. What started as suspicion turned into a devastating truth: secret messages, hotel meetings, and a betrayal that shattered him. But Gangu's biggest fear wasn't losing his wife, it was losing his daughter. Now, with the odds stacked against him, he must risk everything to find the evidence that can expose the truth. Desperate for a miracle, Gangu begged his lawyer for a solution. The man only shook his head and told him to give up. That night, drowning his sorrows in a dimly lit bar, fate threw him a lifeline, or perhaps a curse. A stranger approached, a man he'd briefly seen at the law office. His name was Sancha, a private investigator. Sancha made him an offer: find the right evidence, and your chances of winning custody will skyrocket. The lawyer will have no choice but to fight for you. With nothing left to lose, Gangu hired him. The very next day, Sancha began tailing Lingxiang. It didn't take long for the truth to start unraveling. She was meeting the apartment manager often, and then, shockingly, the two of them headed toward Gangu's own neighborhood. A sick suspicion twisted in Gangu's gut. He raced home to confirm it, and there they were. Lingxiang spotted a neighbor nearby and quickly pulled up her hood, not realizing that her husband was just a few feet away, crouched in the shadows, watching. Then, the truth cut him to the bone. His wife and her lover walked right into the apartment next door. Gangu stood frozen, unable to confront them, his mind spiraling with one haunting question: why next door? The answer came from the mute neighbor. It was a calculated move. Staying close meant they could keep him under pressure, wearing him down for the divorce and custody battle ahead. Gangu's shame turned into grim determination. He decided to gather his own evidence. Arming himself with a selfie stick, he prepared to film them from the balcony. But before he could even start, a taunting voice from inside reached his ears, stoking the fire in his chest. Fighting to control his rage, he stepped onto the balcony and caught them in the act, recording everything. The humiliation was unbearable. In an act of raw, self-punishing control, he yanked out one of his own teeth, and yet, compared to the wound in his heart, the physical pain was nothing. When it was over, he walked silently into the pouring rain, hoping the cold water would wash away his shame. But no matter how he tried, he couldn't let go of his love for Lingxiang. Later, he broke down to Sancha, confessing that he still loved her and didn't want to lose the marriage. But Sancha, always clear-headed, told him, love isn't the point anymore. The only thing that matters now is your daughter. Days later, Lingxiang returned home with their daughter. Gangu had just come out of the shower. She eyed him suspiciously. Why are you showering in the middle of the day? She asked. I got caught in the rain, he replied, making sure she noticed the missing tooth. She showed no concern, not even a flicker. Moments later, she announced she was taking their daughter out to eat, without inviting him. He'd long grown used to being excluded. But what she fed their child that night was worse than neglect: a clump of dry rice, without a scrap of meat or seaweed. And hidden inside, was her wedding ring. When Gangu bit down, the metal shattered the tooth he had just repaired. Was this a cruel joke, or a warning? When he confronted her the next morning, she flipped the script, accusing him instead. Sancha listened to the story and immediately saw the truth. It was all part of Lingxiang's plan. Small, relentless acts to drain Gangu's energy and keep him too distracted to fight back. Sancha knew Gangu was a man who lived frugally, even wearing worn-out slippers rather than buying new ones. To lift his spirits, he bought him a fresh pair and then suggested they try other law firms. But one by one, the answers were the same: no. Finally, Sancha's digging paid off. He uncovered the identity of the mute neighbor, a talent manager at a media company. He and Lingxiang had met when she brought her daughter to an audition, and the man had been captivated by her beauty ever since. When the talent manager, Yaron, saw Gangu's photo in Lingxiang's file, he couldn't hide his disdain. A woman like her, he thought, shouldn't be wasted on such an ordinary man. From then on, Yaron began inviting Lingxiang to meet under the pretense of discussing her personal growth and future plans. But over time, these meetings quietly shifted, from 3 people present, to just the 2 of them. Whenever they were alone, Yaron's silver tongue never failed to make her smile. The more they met, the closer they became. And soon, Yaron realized something: Lingxiang seemed to like him back. He decided the time had come to push further. He poured out his true feelings, telling her he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. Lingxiang knew it was only a matter of time before Gangu found out. So instead of waiting to be caught, she made the first move, filing for divorce. She went straight to attorney Kaitan, painting Gangu as a cold, work-obsessed husband who neglected his family and inflicted emotional abuse. Her demands were simple: maximum child support, and nothing less. But Kaitan was no fool. Her teary performance didn't sway him. He pressed her with sharp, unrelenting questions, making her squirm in her chair. Even so, she stood firm. She wanted full custody and as much money as possible. Finally, Kaitan said he had the legal skill to make it happen, but as a human being, her behavior disgusted him. In the end, he refused to take the case. While Lingxiang was still seeking legal help, Sancha returned to Gangu with something dangerous: a professional-grade listening device. If we can record the right conversation, Sancha said, your chances court will skyrocket. But, you'd better be ready. What you hear might not be easy to stomach. The next day, Ling Xiang and Yaren met again, right next door. Gangu and Sancha slipped quietly to the door with the equipment. From inside came their voices, laughing, talking, growing bolder with every word. Gangu's hands trembled. He hesitated, then pressed the record button. But as the minutes passed, the conversation turned ugly. Their whispers became open ridicule, mocking him, insulting him, tearing at his pride. Gangu clenched his fist so hard that something snapped. He had broken his own finger. The pain shot through him, joining the throbbing ache of the tooth he'd already pulled out in his earlier restraint. At that moment, something in him hardened. The marriage was over, but one goal remained unshaken: he would fight to take back his daughter. One evening, Gangu suddenly saw his wife bringing home a man he'd never seen before. Instinct took over. He dropped to the floor and slid under the couch. At first, he told himself it couldn't be what it looked like. Ling Xiang would never betray him, but the sounds coming from above shattered his heart completely. Still, he didn't leap out to fight, didn't scream, his mind spinning. They had once been so deeply in love. Ling Xiang had been gentle, pure, and idol adored by thousands. How had she transformed into this? The truth began over a decade earlier. 11 years ago, Ling Xiang was chosen to debut in a two-girl idol group. Her parents were thrilled. They told her she would be a star, the family's ticket to a better life. Ling Xiang believed them. She had no idea her own mother was leading her toward a cliff. A year later, Ling Xiang and her partner Xiao Ai released their debut single. It was a success, and Ling Xiang began attracting attention. But attention also brought jealousy. Xiao Ai's smiles masked envy and resentment. One day, Ling Xiang's mother called. Before Ling Xiang could share the good news about her rising fame, her mother dropped a bombshell. The family's shop had been robbed, and every cent was gone. They needed 1 million yen immediately to pay off debts. It wasn't an impossible amount, but Ling Xiang was still new in the industry, with almost no savings. Her mother's desperate pressure left her no choice but to beg her manager for help. He agreed instantly, 1 million yen in cash. Ling Xiang cried with gratitude, promising she'd pay him back. Then he kissed her. Ling Xiang froze, but didn't dare resist. She didn't know Xiao Ai had been watching, and had taken a photo. From that day, the manager treated Ling Xiang well, and she convinced herself he might truly care for her. She didn't realize he was only using her. Later, Xiao Ai caught them hugging downstairs and snapped more photos. And when the scandal broke, the manager kicked her aside without hesitation. She begged Xiao Ai to delete the pictures, but Xiao Ai ignored her. Just like that, Ling Xiang's promising career was over. She ended up working in her mother's bar, pouring drinks for leering, drunk old men. When one crossed the line, she turned to her mother for help, but her mother refused to upset a regular customer. One night, a drunk raised his hand to her, but before he could strike, a man stepped in. Gangu, flashing his press ID, he warned the drunk, "Touch her and you'll spend your life behind bars, and your behavior will be in tomorrow's headlines." The man backed down immediately. Ling Xiang looked at Gangu with gratitude and curiosity. Over drinks, she learned he had been her fan for years, and he never believed she'd willingly be involved with her manager. His words comforted her, but she didn't fall in love, not yet. Her mother, however, had other ideas. She pushed for Ling Xiang to marry Gangu. To avoid her mother's anger, Ling Xiang agreed to get closer to him. She discovered he was decent, reliable, but when he proposed, she refused. She didn't feel worthy of him after everything that had happened. But that night, Gangu arrived in the rain to see her. His heartfelt confession finally broke through her walls. They married. A year later, their daughter was born. Gangu thought their happiness would last forever. He never imagined Ling Xiang would one day live so recklessly. After securing an earlier recording of her in Yaren, Sancha urged him to take it to attorney Kaitan. But when they met, Gangu admitted, in his nervousness, he hadn't pressed record at all. Sancha tried to comfort him, but Kaitan lost his temper. "If you want custody, you can't be this weak," he shouted. The words hit Gangu hard, snapping him awake. This time, he swore he'd be ready. What he didn't know was that Yaren and Ling Xiang were already plotting again. From his post outside, Sancha spotted them and called Gangu immediately. When Ling Xiang phoned to ask if he was home, Sancha had a bold idea. He told Gangu exactly what to say, to keep her unaware. Gangu didn't realize what he was about to face. Sancha told him to hide his shoes in the cabinet, grab a selfie stick and camera, and get under the couch. And when Ling Xiang walked in with Yaren, Gangu finally understood everything.